Imagine you've done everything right. Good grades, great job, good friends. You followed every rule. You never gave anyone a reason to worry. And then you wake up in the middle of a global pandemic and realize, I feel completely empty. I did all the right things. So why does none of this feel right? At some point or another, you've probably heard yourself asking, is this it? When did my anxiety become the thing running my life? And what happens when the perfectionism you've been running on finally runs out? My guest today, Allie Brooke, knows that moment well. A former New York City teacher with a 90-minute commute and a quiet burnout she didn't have a name for. COVID stopped her life long enough to finally hear the whisper she'd been drowning out. She was made for more. She bought a microphone, started talking, built a podcast and a coaching practice around the exact tools that helped her heal. And then she made a decision that terrified her financially. She took a pay cut, left Long Island, moved upstate, and never looked back. Allie now is a certified emotional intelligence and mindset coach. She's a veteran educator and host of the Growth Mindset Gal podcast. This is a conversation about anxiety, perfectionism, quarter-life crises, and the money decisions that come when you finally choose your life over your comfort zone. Listen in.
Welcome to Making Change with Your Money, a podcast that highlights the stories and strategies of women who experienced a big life transition and overcame challenges as they redefined financial success for themselves. Now here's your host, certified financial planner, Laura Rotter.
Welcome, Allie, to the Making Change with Your Money podcast.
Thanks, Laura. I'm so excited to be here. I'm ready for having a wonderful conversation with you again.
Yes, exactly. I was just a guest on your podcast. It was just such a fun conversation. So I'll start, as I always do, with the question, Allie, what was money like in your family growing up?
Oh, what was money like? Well, funny enough, my dad was an accountant and head of payroll at his job. So, when I was growing up, my parents kind of took care of money. Like they did the finances, they handled everything. Like my sister and I, because I have an older sister, we didn't even get an allowance. So we never had direct access to money. It was just hey, back to school shopping. All right, we're going to go with mom. And she goes, this is what you're going to get. This might be your budget sometimes. But other than that, we really had no, direct access to money or ways to earn money until we eventually maybe got our own jobs. But we were also never pressured to make our own money until obviously we're teens and adults and things like that. It was kind of always taken care of, which as a kid you love. You're yeah, I don't have to worry about money. This is so fun. But actually now, because now my sister are adults, the irony is because they took care of us so much, now we're in adulthood and we're what are finances? How do I budget? How do I make sure I have a good credit score? That's my parents. The only thing they really told me was just make sure you have good credit. That was their big thing. So you can get a car and you can get a house. But other than that, I think because my dad was an accountant and was always in finances, he was always I'll handle it. Don't worry. He even does my taxes. Everything
nice.
Was taken care of, which was so great and so nice. But now as an adult, I had to kind of teach myself. And thank God I also had my wonderful fiance. He's also with finances and he's helped me get better, financial education and literacy, if you will.
That's great. I'm curious, Allie, was there a sense you're not reflecting back that there was any scarcity mindset in the family or any anxiety around money? It was just I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it was just
now that I think about it, not really. The only scarcity mindset, if you will, was kind of more just save, 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 save. Not ever talking about, learning about investments or using money to make more money. It was you have money, we're going to put it in the savings account, and then you're not going to touch it until you want to buy a house or you have to pay off student loans. It was kind of always like that save, 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 save. So God forbid anything happened, you would always have money and be prepared. But it was never taught to be it was always on the defense of money rather than like the offense of money, of investing and like using money to build a life and things like that.
Thank you. That's a great way to put it, the defense of money. So definitely a sense of responsibility about money. Know your credit score, be responsible, save.
Yeah.
Which is frankly more messages that many people receive than their parents. Most people look back and say, my parents didn't say anything about money. So clearly it was important to them.
Yes. Yeah.
So, Allie, this is a show for women in a life transition. Our listeners may be going through a big change in their lives, anticipating a big change, maybe just came out. So what was that big transition in your life?
The big transition in my life happened which is crazy or not to even say it, that it was 5 years ago, now over 5 years ago, is when we were going through the COVID-19 pandemic. That was like the big, like awakening breakthrough moment. Before the world shutting down, a global pandemic, I was very much in this anxiety-driven, fear-driven, perfectionism, always have to be doing everything all the time, having to be perfect. I was always trying to be the good girl and follow the rules all the time and just being just absolutely perfect. No one had to worry about me. No one had to depend on anything. Like I was always ready to go. Then all of a sudden, the COVID-19 pandemic happened, and life has to look very different for a lot of people. And, I do my own podcast, but I'm also an educator as well. So then I switched from, going into work every single day and teaching in person to then also remote learning, and teaching also looked very different for that time as well, for obvious reasons. And so seeing how much things that I thought really mattered, especially in my profession as a teacher, just fell to the wayside during a global pandemic. I was like, wow, the things I used to worry about and like hone in on really were not that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things. It also gave me, because I was remote teaching, I didn't have an hour and a half commute into the city anymore. So once I was done remote teaching, I just closed my laptop and now I'm home, and it gave me so much more free time to really do a lot of inward work, reflection. I started reading, because I had so much time on my hands. I started to read self-development books, listen to podcasts, and really start to shift into, I'm feeling really burnt out. And I was probably like 25, 26 at the time. And I was starting to feel like already burnt out in my life and kind of unfulfilled, where I was like, I did all the right things, right? And I was perfect and I got the good grades and I did all the things, and I'm a good friend, a good daughter, like a good girlfriend. Like I was all the good things. But why do I still feel super empty and just unfulfilled? And I kept having this whisper that I was made for more and I can have an impact on people that were probably going through the same thing. And because teaching obviously was not feeling fulfilling, and it was a huge pandemic and things were kind of all over the place, I was like, how can I use my teaching wheelhouse, my teaching skills, but maybe in a different modality? So I was listening to podcasts and I started to think, you know what, maybe this could be another outlet that I could do. That, yes, I'm an educator, but maybe I can educate people on other things rather than being a school teacher for the time, since I also had so much time on my hands.
Yes.
So I started to think of, okay, the best way I always learned and, started to heal in my own way, and healing from anxiety, perfectionism, and people pleasing, was sharing stories. So I bought a mic off Amazon. I started making episodes, just me and the mic. And I just started sharing things that I've learned from my own life experiences. And also, like right before the world shut down, the pandemic, I actually started going to therapy for my anxiety because I was feeling all these things. And then I went to therapy and then the world shut down. So I think I went to maybe one or two in-person sessions, and then it went right to Zoom. And so I just took the things that I was learning from, like I said, life experiences, maybe things I read about in the self-development books, things I learned from my own therapy sessions. So that way, women who are my age or maybe even a little bit younger, like were tuning in and listening to if they were going through the same things and to help them in any way and to realize that they weren't alone.
I love that was an outlet for you, right? There's nowadays everybody talks about free journaling, like just open your journal. You were free videoing, it sounds.
I was free recording. It was just like me and the mic. And I was like, all right, I'm just going to kind of share because, one of the first steps to kind of get reconnected with myself again and to kind of heal through my own anxiety was to to know myself better. And one of the things I did was I started journaling. That was one of the things, like, my therapist was like, oh, let's start doing this. And I would sit down and I would kind of do like a free write for maybe 5 to 10 minutes every Saturday just to kind of build an inner dialogue with myself. And then because I did it so much, I started having inner dialogues with myself if I was like out and about in the world and anxiety would come up and I'd be like, all right, I know my anxiety is coming up because it's trying to protect me from something, but I'm safe right now. Yeah, I'm safe right now. It's okay. We're gonna be okay. I appreciate you. I know what you're doing, but we're okay right now. And then once I started going through those motions and also talking about it right through therapy, I would then hop on the mic and be like, hey, this was something new that I started doing. This was a gratitude practice. This was a journaling prompt that worked for me. This was a major takeaway that I learned from therapy, and started creating episodes from it. And then also bringing in on amazing guests, right, like yourself, to also share their stories as well to help, women heal and grow in any way, shape, or form, whatever path that they're on.
That's so beautifully said, Allie. So I have to reflect back. I guess I've seen it in my own kids, and we're talking about it now. I think there's a lot of discussion about midlife crisis. There isn't that much discussion about quarter life crisis.
Yeah, I was going through it.
Between like the ages of 25 and 30, you're suddenly adulting, and you're like, is that all there is? Like, this is it? I've pushed myself and worked, and then you wake up and you're like, this doesn't feel right. Something's off.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't sound like you changed your profession, though, obviously, but your profession changed a lot during COVID. I'm curious how old your students were.
During COVID, they were in 8th grade, so they were 13 years old.
Okay, so they were old enough to understand,
yes.
new technology. It's still very different to engage online on Zoom rather than in a classroom. And you said during COVID, so in COVID you were teaching in the New York City area?
Yes.
And then I know you two have shifted geographically. So how did that change?
Yeah. So it was after the pandemic and the world was, opening up again. And my fiance and I, we were talking about, maybe the environment that we're living in, because we were both feeling burnt out. We both kind of knew that we are meant for more, and maybe we need to make a change in our life. And we kind of sat together, and my family lives on Long Island, but his family lives in the Albany area, the Capital District in upstate New York. And we sat down and had a discussion where it's like, where do we want to be in order to live our best life? What environment's going to serve us better? Because we both want to be either by his family or my family. And we were kind of just in that, like all New Yorkers now, like that hustle and bustle of life. And that constant go, go, go had such an impact on my anxiety and having to rush everywhere and be in traffic and depend on the trains to get home and getting home later and having a long commute. And I remember telling my fiance, I was like, man, I'm in public for like 12 hours straight, because I would get on the train, you're in public, right? Then you're teaching, you're at your job, and then I'd get back on the train, you're in public. And so from like 5 a.m. to 5 p.m., I was like overstimulated the whole entire day. And so, we sat down and we had a conversation, and he was like, okay, would an option be to move to upstate New York? Now, him and I, we love being outdoors. We love going on hikes and bike riding. So we would come upstate all the time to visit his parents, and we'd be like, oh, we love it up here. It's so nice and slow, and it's calming. It's still like New York, but it's a slower version of New York. And so we made the decision to move from Long Island and to move 3.5 hours upstate into the Albany Capital District area. And we never looked back. And people, they ask me all the time because I go to Long Island a lot to visit friends and family. And they're like, man, like you regret it? Do you miss Long Island? And I was like, and I was born and raised Long Island. And I go, no, I love you guys. I love everyone down there. But the minute I cross over that Throgs Neck Bridge onto the Cross Island, my white knuckle in, you're in traffic, and I can feel,
Yes.
I can feel that the angry New Yorker coming back. And so I was like, I love the people that are there. Do I miss them? Obviously. But just the environment change, it had such an impact on my anxiety that I would go to see my therapist. I would say either once a week or then it was every 2 weeks. Once I moved up here, I now see her once a month. And she even told me when I made the decision to move up here, like after the first, 1 or 2 sessions, she goes, you are a completely different person. You move differently, you talk differently, and you just like upbeat, brighter, more excited. Like you feel also like more relaxed and you don't feel as tension, as anxious anymore. And she goes, we can go once a month just to do little check-ins, here and there. But she could see just the difference of me simply changing my environment that would serve my life better rather than maybe staying in a place that was more comfortable. It's well known. I had a good job. All my friends and family were there, but it was a life that wasn't serving me anymore. And if I wanted to build the life that I know inside would make me happy and thrive, I took the risk, because that's always a risk. I took the risk of moving to upstate New York, and I haven't looked back. I actually enjoy the ride back home after I visit everyone and I have a good time. I'm like, I cross over. It's called the Mario Cuomo Bridge, but it's in my brain.
Yes, the Tappan Zee. Yes.
Once I cross over the Tappan Zee and you see like the big Albany sign and you're on the throughway, I'm like, back at no more traffic. I love it. And, I truly enjoy where I live and just going on hikes and being outside and just having a slower pace of life.
You are not the sum of your earnings. You are the sum of your yearnings. If you're ready to use wealth to create more freedom and flexibility, let's align your finances with what matters most. Together, we'll build a plan that balances your scarce resources of energy, time, and money so you move forward with clarity, confidence, and less stress towards a life of true abundance. Learn more at www.trueabundanceadvisors.com and schedule a short conversation. I love hearing you go through the decision-making process, Allie. Certainly as a financial advisor, conversations about moving are often motivated by financial variables, and certainly living in the Albany area has got to be cheaper than living.
Yes, that was also finance. We were like, well, Long Island is super expensive to live in. And the upstate New York, it's still, a good, decent amount of money, but it is a lot cheaper to move up here and, eventually buy a house. And I also kind of had to make a financial decision where in my New York City public school job, which I loved, it was just not, the lifestyle just wasn't for me anymore. I made a whole lot of money. And then so coming up here and working up here, I was going to make less money, but I had to then make the decision like financially, but also just like lifestyle wise, is the risk, right, of making less money. Is that worth the lifestyle change that's going to uplift your life and help you feel better and reduce your anxiety and help you heal? And so I had to tackle with that conversation. Am I going to be okay if I make less money? And also, I am in wedding planning mode too now. So that, we have to get the apartment, wedding planning. I knew those big plans were going to be coming up. And so I had to sit with myself and be like, hey, is it worth taking a huge pay cut in order to live a more aligned life for the lifestyle that I wanted to live. And at the end of the day, I thought about it and I was like, when I'm older and I'm sitting wherever I'm sitting, wherever I chose to live, am I going to be so happy that my present self made the decision, or am I going to regret it? And I sat with myself and I was like, you know what? There's more to life than making money. And if I'm going to be okay with taking that pay cut, but I'm going to be healed and I'm going to be feeling better and even going to therapy less, is that going to be worth the financial decline a little bit from the pay cut? And for me, at least, I was like, yeah, let's see. I was like, you know what? I feel good about it. I want to see it. And I always told myself, if I move upstate and I don't like it or something goes awry, then we make the next plan.
Yeah.
Because I learned from the pandemic was you can make a 5-year plan, but hey, you never know what it's going to throw at you. A global pandemic was not in my 5-year plan. And that was that, anxiety of control. And I want to control every aspect of my life. And what I've learned from the pandemic was, what's going to work right now? Okay. Is this you moving upstate and you feeling better and healing? Is that going to feel good for you? And you have the finances to do so? Yes, you took the pay cut, but you're still going to be okay. Then let's try it out. Let's see what happens. And if it doesn't work out, it's like that we cross the bridge when we get there rather than trying to project so much into the future that a lot of the times if people project themselves too much into the future, that's where we get stuck and we limit ourselves too much because there's too many what ifs that come up if you're trying to project 5-10 years ahead of time because you just never know.
Yes, and I'm hearing my inner Allie,
Mm-hmm.
talking and saying, thank you so much for worrying so far into the future. You're trying to protect me. I appreciate it. I'm good.
Exactly. Like we're going to be okay. And if we're not okay, we'll figure it out to be okay.
Yes. And I love how I often say that we have several scarce resources, of course, money, but also time and energy.
Mm-hmm.
And I hear you talk about the decision-making process and how you knew that, spending 12 hours, as you said, public facing was draining your life energy. And and of course, taking a tremendous amount of time. And that you knew that those resources needed to be balanced against the financial resources. And that you haven't looked back and you made a great decision.
Mm-hmm.
So, Allie, can you share, in addition to teaching, and I assume you're teaching a different age now, not 13?
No, I'm still teaching middle school. So I'm teaching
Right.
currently grades 5, 6, and 7. So I'm still in the same age range. Yeah.
So you're teaching, you've got a podcast. What else are you doing with your energy and talent?
Oh, that's such a good question because when I made the decision to come up here, it was that like, I want more free time to do things that, Allie likes to do as a person. A lot of the times, whatever job that you have, right, you identify so much with that job. And even if you love it, that's fantastic. But then I was like, ooh, I'm going to have more time to see like, beyond being teacher Allie, what does Allie like to do with her spare time, with her free time, with her having more energy too, because you would come home and I'd be exhausted. I couldn't talk to my fiance for like 30 minutes. I was like, listen, I need to be on the couch and I need to be horizontal for 30 minutes in silence and then we can chat. I don't have to do that anymore. And so with that free time, I realized now I have more time to read. I sit on my balcony and I love to read for about 30 minutes. I also love movement is a big part of my day too. So with my free time, I love doing movement that also heals me, makes me feel better. I go on walks all the time outside to go get some fresh air. And it's so nice that I have the time to decide on the day, like what feels good for me, where when I had that commute, I had to be so structured in the time because I was like, all right, I get off the train at this end. Okay, it's going to take me 5 minutes to drive to the gym. It's going to be crowded at the gym by the time that I get there.
God, yeah.
I got to do this workout. I got to figure out if it's going to make sense. I got to get home and make dinner. Like it was like no time to like breathe with that kind of lifestyle. Here I get to come home and I go, what feels good for me right now? Do I want to go move my body? Do I want to read? Do I want to do maybe podcast content? Do I want to do my Instagram content? Like what's going to feel good? And then also I started stepping into, I have all this free time, especially in the summer, that I was like, ooh, you know what? Another step of my teaching wheel is then going into emotional intelligence and mindset coaching. So since I had so much more free time, I was like, ooh, maybe I can also use this time to educate myself. Right. And so I started taking online courses and getting certified in emotional intelligence and mindset. And in my brain, I always love being a lifelong learner. So I'm always like, when I have free time, I was like, how can I use this time either maybe for creativity or education? And so I started taking online courses, and I would be there with my little notebook and I'd have my headphones in and I'd be listening and enjoying it. And I've learned so many things from this side of my life, where with teaching and like podcasting and coaching, they intertwine so much. But there are times where like when I'm in the summer, I'm very much in the podcast and mindset coaching space and, that self-development space, where it feels good to have that dichotomy of, during the school year, it's very much teacher Allie and I love it and I enjoy it. And then the summertime, I could have that space to have the opposite, side of me, or not even the opposite, but more just another side of me. As I always think it's funny because I am a Gemini, so we always have like that two-sided business going on. And I definitely kind of live the beautiful duality of life where, you can do both things and still be true to yourself and live the best version of yourself and build the life that you enjoy.
I love that. Allie, I just have to ask because I'm curious, how long is your commute now?
Oh, it is 12 minutes instead of an hour and a half. It's 12 minutes. And it's on nice side roads, like not even like the highways. And it's, when I get to drive to work now too, because in upstate New York, it's beautiful in the fall. You get the fall foliage. Yeah. And when it snows up here, it's actually pretty because when it snows on Long Island, it gets to slush and it's just like gray and not fun. But up here, I get to drive to work. It's beautiful and it's like snowing. And then in the summer, it's so green up here. That was like one of the things I noticed. It's so beautiful and green and open. So even driving to work, yeah, it's 12 minutes, but it's a beautiful drive. And I get to like take in that 12 minutes before the day starts and also take in that 12 minutes, and that's the best thing too. It's 12 minutes for the ride home. So instead of getting home between like 5 or 5:30, I get home around 3:45. So much more time today.
Life you've made for yourself.
Thank you.
So, Allie, what are the lessons? I know, again, you talked about your podcast. That's been your focus this summer. What are some of the lessons you think you try to communicate in your podcast episodes? One or two that you might want to share with our listeners.
Oh, yeah. I have two lessons that came up for me recently. One being that everything in life is temporary, because I would always like to hold on to things and take things so seriously and have this like permanence about things. But it was such a freeing feeling to understand that everything in life is temporary. Seasons in life are temporary. Emotions are temporary. Thoughts are temporary. Relationships are even temporary. And so moving through life, not holding on to things so tightly and being able to be with things presently that serve you and enjoy the time that you have those things. And then also being able to let go of things that don't serve you anymore. So that could be people, that could be a lifestyle, that could be your thoughts, that could be just narratives that you have to rewire in your brain that don't serve you anymore. Being able to let go of those things. That's lesson number one. Lesson number two, and this is what I'm trying to go through towards the end of, we're recording this in 2025. So I'm looking towards the end of 2025. Is that to be open to things, be open to opportunities of fun and joy, because oftentimes we stunt ourselves of joy because we're afraid of like maybe judgment or we're afraid of what people are going to think. But if it's really going to bring you joy and happiness, it's your own life. And so being open to going to things that you enjoy Because at the end of the day, do you want to look back at yourself being like, I'm so glad I went to those things and it brought me so much happiness and it brought me so much joy? Or are you going to regret, man, I wish I did those things. I wish I was more open and I wish I didn't care, you know, of being afraid of what people would think or judge me in, you know, any case. So for example, I started going to hot yoga classes because I was like, oh, that's like fun. I want to try and do something like that to heal my body and things like that. And at first I was so scared to take like, you know, group classes. I always like working out on my own and I was afraid of like judgment or anything else. But then I walked into the class. The instructor was so nice. Everyone was just doing their own thing and you were working out together, but like still within yourself, you know, because you're just on your mat doing your thing. And it's such a beautiful cathartic experience to just kind of do hot yoga together in a room with people. And it's just like a nice healing experience. And I go, man, little Allie would have never done that. She would have been like, I'm too scared to do them. I'm afraid of the judgment of people coming in. A social anxiety was coming up. But I was like, you know what? I'm 31 years old. I can go to a hot yoga class and enjoy myself and be open to the fun opportunities of a new way of movement that can help my body. That's lesson number 2.
Love it. Love it.
Thank you.
I just feel the need to share that I was always a runner and very like sort of hardcore exerciser. And probably around your age, I was introduced to Bikram yoga. And that's how I ultimately became someone who practices yoga regularly. I practiced yoga this morning, but it had to be in this sort of 104-degree sweating, intense heat for me to be introduced to the movement that now I do in without that much heat. And I also, as a closet Buddhist, if you will, I think the first lesson you talked about, non-attachment, is a difficult one. And to the extent that you can practice it, it makes life so much easier. And of course, we're all strivers. And there is that paradox of, we're not saying don't strive, but strive and don't be attached to the outcome. I mean, the more we do our work, right, Allie, I'm, you know, older than you, and yet we are in similar spaces of understanding that it's important to push ourselves beyond our comfort zones. That's how we grow. We have, you know, it's important to try new things and not be attached to the outcome. It's the journey, perhaps an overused word, but it's the journey. Enjoy the actual experience and you know, don't be constantly waiting for like what's going to happen from the experience.
Enjoy the now.
Exactly.
Enjoy the now.
And when we can be there, like enjoying this moment with you, our lives are full, and we're human, so we're not always going to be able to be in the present moment. Oh, Allie, I feel like very full to my soul. I have.
Me too. This happens every time we chat, Laura. Every time.
Can you share how your definition of success has shifted, I guess, over these last 5-6 years?
I would say the definition of success back then was definitely like outcome based and like getting the good grades, you know, getting the striving, you know, things on like the teacher rubric after an observation to say that I'm a good teacher and like all those things. And like getting, I always seeked for external praise all the time. And I was very externally driven. And then now shifting from, you know, 5 years ago, now the form of success is the internal love and validation that I have for myself. I think success is, I know with myself, my whole body, mind, and soul, that no matter what life throws at me, both good and bad, that I'll be able to handle it and I'll be able to move through it and grow and learn and enjoy the human experience and be present in the human experience, rather than rushing, like you said, for the outcomes all the time and the external, and really just being okay and present all the time with your internal.
That's so great that you discovered this and have a practice to keep you there. So, Allie, before we end our conversation, are there any resources you'd like to share with our listeners? Certainly, I want to put a link to your podcast in the show notes.
Yeah. So my major hub is on Instagram. So it's at the Growth Mindset Gal. And then also I have my podcast, and it's the Growth Mindset Gal podcast, which Laura is on as well. We did a fun podcast collaboration. So that'll be linked as well. And then the last form of resources, I have 2 online membership communities called the Growth Method. And one is free and one is premium subscription. It's about $20 a month. But if you use the code Growth Mindset Gal, your first month is 50% off, which is $10. And it's a monthly subscription. You can come and go as you please, but also on the free community, you just join and you can stay as long as you like. And in both communities, there's different types of mindset educational resources and community opportunities to help you in any part of the mindset journey that you're on. We have discussion forums, live master classes, online courses. One of them is about journaling and free writing. And also there's video content for guest episodes like Laura's that's going to be on the free. And so it's just a great space, both of them, in order to just, help yourself and guide yourself with some support of education and community for your mindset journey. So those are going to be the 2 places for resources.
That's great. I will make sure to put all of this in the show notes. Thank you so much for being my guest, Allie. I always enjoy our conversations.
Me too, Laura. And thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I love the collaboration and chatting with you.
Thanks for listening to Making Change with Your Money. Certified financial planner Laura Rotter specializes in helping people just like you organize, clarify, and invest their money in order to support a life of purpose and meaning. Go to www.trueabundanceadvisors.com/workbook for a free resource to help you on your journey. Disclaimer, please remember that the information shared by this podcast does not constitute accounting, legal, tax, investment, or financial advice. It's for information purposes only. You should seek appropriate professional advice for your specific information.